Get ready to plan your event the smart way and learn how to plan like a pro. So, today we're going to be talking about how to plan some events that go on in your life. And you may say, I don't have big events. I'm not a big event planner. That's not my title. But if you are someone that's a mom, usually a wife, a business owner, have friends, family, 9 times out of 10, you are planning events. And a lot of times you're planning them on the side of your life instead of incorporating it into your life. And if you like me, a lot of times once the event start or even sometimes before it even start, and I don't care how wonderful the it turns out, you say to yourself, I am never doing this again. So today we want to help decrease some of that stress, and I have a plan to show you how to actually do that. But first, I want to say hi to everyone and welcome to the Momafey Live Conversations. You know that this podcast is about, and these conversations are about my Becoming Me podcast that happens once a week. And then I also talk about my other two podcasts as well, which is the Understanding Cycles by Momafey and the Small Steps, Big Change podcast. But today we're going to focus on the Momafey Becoming Me podcast because we just dropped an episode about setting event goal planning. And the reason why I came up with this is because a lot of time we set our yearly goals, we set our long-term and our short-term goals. And I did last week. If you haven't seen that particular conversation, I talk about the seasonal goals and things that come up every season in our year. But I also wanted to include event planning goals because events come up as well. And the events are things that maybe don't come every season and it doesn't happen every year in your life, but that 50th birthday or that sweet 16 or a child graduating or you graduating from college, retirement, all of those things happen, and usually you want to celebrate those things. And it's also for the business owner who have to do different presentations. Sometimes you have to have events and meetings to help promote things that you're trying to do. And it's for those people who have jobs where you have to train, you have to put on training. So we're going to talk about all of those things today. Yes. And I'm going to give you mainly some tips of what you can do and things for you to think about as well. And then I'm going to tell you about a journal that I'm creating, the Event Goals Journal that I am giving to those that are my paid subscribers, just to say thank you for being a paid subscriber for just as little as $5 a month. And you can do that for 30 days and cut it off if you don't want to do the rest. So let's get into it. This week, we're talking about creating event goals. So have you ever had to do an anniversary, a school party, a dinner, a graduation? Sometimes it's community gatherings that you may do as well. Well, a lot of times when you have to plan things, sometimes it can start off great, but eventually, careful, it can go off the rails. And what I mean when something goes off the rail. So let's think about these three things first before I get into the others that you must contemplate. And some of you probably do this in your head, or some of you may even write it down. But these are three things that you have to consider when you're getting ready to even start planning a particular event. And the first one is, what is the goal of the event? Is this event for celebration? Is it for remembering? Is it for training and education? Is it to provide people with information on a particular thing that you want to provide information on? Is this to promote a particular product or something else that is supposed to happen? Is this to gather people together to try to motivate them to get up under a cause? What is the purpose of the event? Because I'm sure many of you, just like I have, and I probably have been guilty of this as well, where you think you're going to a birthday party and the birthday party ends up turning into some other type of registration, and then it turns into some type of product that somebody's trying to sell you, and you leave there kind of confused because you thought you was being invited to a birthday party. But what happens is many times when people don't sit down and decide what is the purpose of this event, it can start saying, oh, well, I could just use this as an opportunity to sell my product. Oh, I could use this as an opportunity to tell people about the other event that I'm having. And that causes confusion in your mind because now your event is now kind of clouded. So finding out what the purpose, and sometimes it can have a multiple purpose, but it has to you want it to have a flow. So if it is going to be two types of things that you're going to be doing at an event, you want to make sure that they complement each other and it doesn't have like a clash. So that's one of the things that we want to do. And then it says, what do you want people to leave with? Because that objective needs to be clear because it's going to tell you how to do this event, how to plan the event. And it may even give you some guidance of where you want to have the event and who is going to be coming to that event. And also to what is the real purpose behind it? So I think that kind of covers all of the three things that you want to think about before you even sit down to actually do the event. And that is a part of the planning, believe it or not, because it's going to help you to figure out how to plan this event. So here go 12 things that you might want to consider before planning any event. And I talk about this on the podcast. So if I don't get to all 12 of them today, I want you to go and listen to that podcast. It's called the Momafey Becoming Me podcast. And it is the latest episode. They drop every Tuesday. And so and that is on my YouTube. It's also on Substack and it's on Facebook. And also you can listen on Spotify, iHeart, and anywhere where you normally listen to podcasts. So we're going to start. Now, I know most people think about this, and I don't know, I'm not so sure. But this is one of the biggest ones that really causes a lot of people to say, I'm never doing another event. And that is having a budget, because a lot of times you start out and you say, well, I'm not going to make this too big. Or you might even say, I want something really big and I want it to be, like life-changing, and I want it to be memorable. And you start just spending money, but you need to have a true budget. And this budget is really, what do you have on hand, not what you think you might make in the next before the event start. It's what you have on hand for this particular event. And that's no matter whether it's something small. Don't count out that little small event that you having for the kids for their football season. Maybe you having a celebration, but you think it's not going to cost that much because I'm going to the park and the park is free and I'm just going to buy some pizza. Oh no. A lot of times they turn out to be they can be budget busters. So you want to still, I don't care how small it is, you want to have a budget for how much you are going to spend. And not only do you want to have that budget, but you want to write down in each category how much it's going to cost you and you're willing to pay for that particular category. And then that brings me to, on top of that, is having backup money. Now, I know you really said to yourself, I'm only spending this amount and I am not spending any more. But you and I know if you ever planned anything, the last minute on the last day, something will happen and you have to shell out some money for that event because it's on now. And if we ran out of whatever, or if you go to somewhere and they said, oh, you need to put down this additional money because in order to get whatever it is, you have to pay this part, because especially like if you're at a venue, they may give you the building free, but they may say, oh, if you want this, you have to pay extra for that. And you need to have that emergency fund there. I don't care how big or small, that you can take care of that and you don't have to end up regretting having an event, especially if it was for a celebration. And now your celebration has been tainted because your budget is busted. And now you're going to be spending some months trying to dig yourself out of the hole. So having a budget and having a backup emergency fund for that event will go a long way for you. And then the guest count. And I know it sounds maybe, like, oh yeah, you need to have a guest count. Everybody knows you need to have a guest count. And a lot of times when people say, oh, like, I'm not having something sit down and everybody's invited. Oh, you might wanna have a guest count, some number in your head of how many people that you want to be at that event. And the reason why we want to have that guest count, and sometimes you want to write it down, because one thing happen is you may have a whole bunch of people show up that you do not have the capacity to be able to take care of. How many times have you been at an event and it was so crowded that people couldn't move around, people couldn't park, and it made it a great event just so cumbersome because it was just too crowded. And then a lot of times what happens is if it's a type of celebration and you didn't really think about that guest count, sometimes the people that you really wanted to be there, guess what? You forgot to invite them. So you want to make sure that you have a guest count. And what that guest count is going to do, of course, it's going to tell you how much food you need to have. But if this is going to be a event that's going to go for a long period of time, for more than an hour, you're going to have enough chairs, enough table, enough space, enough parking. And you also going to have, how much supplies that you're going to need, because it's not just the tables and the chairs and all of that, but all of the supplies, enough water, because if it's somewhere hot, you got to have enough fluids and drinks for people to drink. And so all of that has to be accounted for in that guest count. So that brings me to the right space, because whenever you have an event, it's not just having the event, it is having enough space to do what it is that you're trying to do. So that goes back to them 3 questions. What is the purpose? Because if the purpose is for people to get up and enjoy themselves, and maybe you want people to dance, you got to have space for the people to dance, right? If you want for people to go through a budget, a line, a buffet line, you're going to have enough space for people to be able to get up and walk through that buffet line. So all of those things have to be taken into consideration. And that also includes in the space, do you need a place for people to be able to heat food or to cook? Because if that's a part of it, you have to have that as well. And when you're thinking about space, think about what type of event you're having, because if it requires a lot of live music, it requires speakers, it requires you're going to be doing any videos, that place or that space have to have the capacity to be able to electrically be able to handle all of that on its electrical grid. So you're going to have to make sure that it is a place that can accommodate that. Also, a lot of times for a lot of trainings, people have to bring their computers. And if it's that type of training, you have to make sure that you have enough extension cords and places for them to plug up in order for them to be able to do so. So these are the things that we have to think about. And that brings me to the event flow. We want to make sure that it's going to flow. And guess what? The more people you have, the more you have to think about the flow. How is this going to flow? I went to a huge convention once, and it was put on really nice, and I had a really, really great time. But one of the things that they did not consider was that they had this massive crowd of people. And when they did their breakout sessions, the breakout sessions ended up being a little bit disorganized because the people who planned it did not plan a flow for how the people were going to get in and out of those breakout sessions, because their breakout sessions were just as big as most people's main session. And they didn't have a plan of how they were going to move the people through the convention center in order for the people to be able to flow in and out of each one of those breakout sessions. So if you're planning an event and you want it to have a large amount of people, you have to think logistics. How are they going to get in, and how are we going to manage getting them out of each space? And then, of course, that means your parking as well, because I went to a graduation, and one time it took us like 4 hours literally to get out of the parking garage. So these are things that you have to think about when you're planning an event and you want it to flow as best as it can. We all know that events are stressful. Let's not kid ourselves. We all know that when you plan an event and you are the planner, you under a lot of stress. And whether it's even on that day, but you under a lot of stress. So that also brings me to setup time. A lot of times when you go to an event center, or even sometimes if you have HOAs because you may say I'm going to have it at home, but you're going to have HOAs, you have to think about what if they're going to allow you enough setup time to be able to come in and set up for your event. Because a lot of times you're not going to get access to that room or that venue until a certain time. And so depending on that, you have to decide how much decoration, how much setup time that you're going to need to set up and to break everything down after the event. And of course, we all know that there's the food. So you definitely want to look at food. But one of the things that if you're not a caterer, or you're not someone who someone else is not providing the food and you're doing the food yourself, you have to think about if the food that you have at this event, how long can it stay out without being refrigerated? Sometimes you need place to heat the food. All of those things have to be taken into consideration when you're not, when you're going to do it yourself. Because a lot of times we have certain communities, you know how you are. We like to, oh, we could do that ourselves. Okay, you can, but it's going to cost you. And it's going to cause you a lot of headaches and a lot of things that you're going to have to consider in order to have this event. And we talked a little bit about parking and how that needs to be a part of the plan and the strategy. And a lot of times, even if you're having it at your home, you got to think about the parking there as well, because you might not have neighbors that was going to allow you to, have people parking in front of their houses. Now, most communities don't allow parking on the grass like you used to could do that. No, no, no. So even if you have something at your home, you got to think about the parking too. And then there are the parks. A lot of time during the summertime, we want to have things that are out at parks, but many times parks, sometimes you have to have permits for certain things. And you also have to have the vendor's approval to do certain things on their property. Even though you may plan certain things, they may require security, they may require insurance, they may also require rental agreements. You have to ask them whether it's okay for you to bring food to their venue or to the park. So all of these things have to be things that you want to consider when you do that event, whether it's small or large. And a lot of times, some of the parks, depending on where it's are, don't allow loud music. So if that is going to be a part of the event, because maybe your event is celebration and party and festive and all of those things, or maybe you're going to have a loudspeaker, you want to make sure that the place that you want to have it allows it. And of course, don't forget the supplies that you're going to need for that event. You are going to need some supplies. So make sure you have enough of the spoons, the forks, the plates, and all of that. But you got to make sure that you have enough trash bags, because afterwards it's going to be a lot of trash that's going to need to be picked up. Hopefully you have a cleanup team. So you want to have the cleanup team. And like we've said about, if you're going to have like a video and you're going to have a lot of speakers and things like that, or a live band, they're going to need certain supplies in order for them to be able to do what it is that they need to do so it can be successful. And by all means, I guess because I'm a nurse, make sure you have some first aid stuff there too, because you may need that as well. And of course, we always want to look at, and that's why we say, what type of event are you going to have? Because you want to do the planning time. That some events really need more time to plan. Yeah, you can put together an event in whatever amount of time, but do you really want to be that stressed out? And if you're a person that event planning is not a major part of your life, you have other things that are happening in your life that are still lifing. So you may have, because you might be still going to school. You might be have kids that have things that they are a part of that require a lot of your time and your attention. You may be a caregiver. So all of these things has to be considered. So the more time that you give to your event and setting those goals for that event is going to work in your favor. So we want to do that. And finally, I also want to say, have a peace plan. Know what you have the ability to do, because many a times we want to do what people do that have event planners that do this every day, that know how to do it. And if you're not a person that plan events often or never, you might want to consider getting an event planner. And the reason why I tell you that is because a lot of times it's easier to plan it up until the day of. But on that day, unless you are experienced and know what you're doing, a lot of times it can be overwhelming and it can turn into a disaster. So if you know that you're not one that want to clean up, you're not somebody who's going to be there hours early, and you're depending on other people, volunteers, and you think family and friends are going to show up and just happen to help you, you might want to think again. You might want to think about going ahead and hiring someone who can actually do it. And I encourage you, we're not talking about that today, but you might want to make sure that the person that you have to do it or that you pay to do it, that they have the ability and the know-how how to plan the type of event that you're trying to plan. So you have to interview your event planner and make sure that they are qualified to do the type of event that you want them to do. And so the simple truth is event goals help us every day, and it helps people to plan and help you to do so successfully, because the end goal is just like we talked about at the beginning. Your end goal is so that when you finish that event, that it served the purpose that you wanted that event to serve. And if it was celebration, you want to have some great pictures and some great footage of the event. So make sure you put that in there. And if it was the training, you want the people to actually have learned something and gained something from the training. And if it's for them to take next steps or for a promo or for anything like that, you want it to be such a great experience that they want to take the next step, right? So that's why I put together a PDF, and that PDF is going to be for those who are a part of my paid subscribers, and it's going to be an event planning, goal planning, planner and journal. And the reason why I say journal is because a lot of times you need to write out certain things and write out your thoughts so that when you, especially if you're doing it over a period of time, then you won't be confused as to where you are in the process. And guess what? When you finish that event, you would, if it's written down, if you have to put together another event, you can go right back to that, your PDF, save it to your computer or save it to your phone, and you can go right back to that and be able to plan even more events just from basically doing it the first time. So I want to encourage you that newsletter is called the Becomers Newsletter. It's on Substack. And I want to encourage you, it'll come out on Friday, and look out for that particular newsletter. And so that brings me to Momafey, have more coming on my other podcast. And the Small Steps, Big Change podcast is definitely coming back in July. And it's coming back with things you need to know that your mama should have told you. And some of the things that we're going to be talking about is things that you should know about your body, about your health, about your money, about people. There's some things that your mama should have told you about human, how people are. And we're going to talk about those. And also, we're going to talk about real world things, the future. So these are going to be real life conversations about things. And also what I do is I give you some clear steps that you can take, practical answers. And so it's just coming from like Momafey, things that maybe your mom didn't tell you, you didn't get that upbringing, or maybe she was busy, but or it may be in a review for some of you. So I want you to stay tuned for that. And of course, this fall, We're going to be talking on the Understanding Cycles by Momafey. We're going to have another powerful series that is 2 first ladies and a king. We're going to talk about these first ladies. And I already dropped a teaser, and I want you to listen to that teaser. But we're going to be talking about on that particular podcast, it's going to be coming from Esther. And out of that, we're going to be talking about the opportunity. We're going to be talking about the come up, the preparation, the plot, the plan, the payback, and the help, the victory, and the celebration. So yes, you want to be ready for that. And the only way that you can become ready and be on the know when it's going to come out is you would need to subscribe. Take that little few minutes to subscribe to the podcast, and also too, you can follow and make sure that you turn on your notifications, because it'll let you know each time I come out with a new series or I drop a new episode. It's going to let you know that that episode has dropped. And of course, I want you to continue to follow me or to continue to my live conversations. Also, there are replays that you can have. And now I'll be in the chat live. So if you have questions, you can definitely do those questions, and you'll be able to get answers in real time about whatever we're talking about. And so for those of you that are on any one of the social media platforms, definitely follow me on that platform. And I also want to say, for those of you who want to support what I'm doing, there is a QR code right there. You can donate, or you can go to my website, Momafey-HT.com, and you can support by buying merch. I also have several digital products, and I usually try to put those PDFs on there as well. And you can purchase the PDF, download it right to your computer, and it's yours. And you can use it. You can use certain pages. And I also want to tell you that this week, the Momafey guided journal is available on Barnes & Noble. All you have to do is put in my first name, Faith, and Randolph, and all of the books that I have on Barnes & Noble online will come up. And if you want to continue with goal setting, with something that we're doing in our becoming process, we're not just listening to the podcast, but we're actually setting our goals for this year. And if you still can be a part of that, and it is a yearly guided journal that you can use to set your goals for the year and then for the month. And it also has some weekly pages that you can download, or you can type right into it, and you can save it on whatever you use, whether it's tablet, computer, or a phone, and become a part of our process. And so I want you to do that and be a part of everything that we are doing. So I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you for listening. That is all for today. And I will see you next time.
And I got something to say.